Thank you for joining us this morning. We're here for the release of the 2023 Otis College Report on the creative economy. Today's event is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available on our website, otis.edu, this afternoon. Following today's event, the entire 2023 Otis College Report on the creative economy will be available on our website, again, otis.edu. And we encourage you to let other people know, use the resources yourself. And then for attending today, we're also going to be sending you and probably everyone watching online a brief email survey so we can learn more about today's event and get feedback on today's event. The Otis College Report on the creative economy is in its 16th year. It provides insight into the impact of creative sectors on the economy of Los Angeles and California. The creative economy is roughly 15% of California's gross regional product, 15%. The creative economy is essential to our region and to our state, and today you'll hear the creative sectors are still navigating a period of change and adaptation due to the pandemic. I don't want to spoil or give away any of the headlines, but the creative economy is outperforming the rest of the economy in the state of California. So it's actually growing and rebounding faster, but Adam will fill you in on that shortly. As part of the engine of LA's creative economy, Otis College is preparing a diverse new generation of creative students to succeed in dynamic fields that range from fashion and toy design to animation, game, and entertainment design. As a result, it's important that we understand as a college and as faculty and staff and establish the emerging creative sectors that will be employing our students. I'd like to share one specific way that Otis College is preparing and expanding representation in the creative industries. 2 weeks ago, we announced a new certificate program in partnership with Netflix that will recruit, educate, and provide underrepresented students with increased access to careers in entertainment. Netflix has partnered with Otis College to provide high school graduates with a 14-month entertainment marketing certificate program, followed by a guarantee of 6 months employment. Applications are now available for this tuition-free program, which will launch in the fall. So, very specifically, 18 students with high school graduation who have graduated from high school will start at Otis in the fall. They'll be full-time students for 14 months. It'll all be tuition-free. At the end of the 14 months, they'll be employed in marketing in entertainment marketing firms doing work for Netflix as a client. And this will launch them into a career without 4 years of college, without any debt. It hopefully will address inclusivity, affordability, accessibility, diversity. So it's really an amazing program that Netflix is partnering with us. So just personally, if you know anyone out there from an underserved community, especially Black and brown students who are high school graduates who are interested in entertainment marketing, they should apply to this program. And this is a unique opportunity for 18 students, and if it succeeds, then we'll be able to scale it up and make it available to many more students in many more creative fields. And it was otis.edu/Netflix. I want to thank CIVIL Economics for their authorship of today's report that we're releasing, and Adam, our moderator, and the panelists for today's discussion. The panel is going to talk about gaming and the digital shift in art and design. So I'm looking forward to the panel, and you'll get to meet all the panelists then. I also want to give a very special thanks to our sponsors who've made all this possible, including City National Bank, the Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs, Gallagher, the Getty Foundation, Marsh, Moss Adams, the Ralph M. Parsons Foundation, and Sony Pictures Entertainment. That's the high sign from the Chief of Staff. and countless people at the college and at the library who've worked really hard to return this event in person. So how about applause for all those people's effort? I would like to welcome our special speaker, Mayor Karen Bass, who is not only a big supporter of Otis College, she's an Otis College mom, a parent of an Otis College graduate. So she has always been a big supporter of the college, and an advocate for art and design education throughout her career. As our new mayor, we're grateful for her continued support of the creative economy in Los Angeles and throughout the state. So please join me in welcoming our new mayor, Karen Bass.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hi. Good morning, everyone. This is an exciting day in our city, and I want to thank you, Charles, for that introduction. It is good to join you all again. It's nice to actually be in person. Last year, we had to do this on screen, but I am always glad to be a part of Otis, anything that Otis is doing. And as was mentioned, I am an Otis mom. My son and daughter-in-law are Otis graduates. I want you to know they're doing very well. Very well. They're both toy designers, and so that has definitely made me a champion of all that Otis has to offer. So with this annual report, Otis provides us with a critical tool for gaining a clear, comprehensive understanding of that impact. Not only that, but this institution is a pipeline of talent, a place that fuels our creative economy by graduating highly skilled creative professionals who contribute so much, not just to our economy, but to our culture. And one thing that is so wonderful about our city is that our city truly impacts the world. And one of the most significant ways our city impacts the world is through the creative community and the creative economy. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to everyone at Otis, the leadership, faculty, board, and students. Thank you for your insight and your inspiration that you provide, and thank you for playing such an extraordinary role in our city. This city stirs the soul of the world with our movies, music, architecture, and fine art, and Otis is critical to that creative power. And as creative people, you all know the power of art and design to shift people's thinking, to change cultural norms, and there's so many examples of that. Well, in Los Angeles, we have our problems, but I think of one way that the creative community has impacted culture is when it comes to social issues like the environment, or even issues like marriage equality. You can turn on the TV now, and it's not surprising to see examples of that. Well, I'm hoping that the creative community can have a role in impacting our number one problem we're dealing with in the city, and that's homelessness, in a way to get people to think about, to put a human face on a social problem, and to help change the norms so that we have a welcoming city, which we do in so many ways, but we also have to think about the income inequality. And I know that the creative community not only impacts that in terms of employment and so many different opportunities in the creative economy, but also in terms of cultural norms. So I look forward to hearing about the report, the results of the report, and actually sharing it all around, because everyone in the city needs to understand the role of the creative economy. It's not just movies. It's not just the fact that people feel their blocks might be interrupted because of filming, but to appreciate what that means, because it is absolutely a contribution to our economy and to our country. So thank you very much for the opportunity to greet you today and to continue on doing the wonderful work that the city needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bass, for joining us this morning. I'd now like to welcome Adam Fowler, partner at Civil Economics, to share key findings of the 2023 Otis College Report on the creative economy. Adam's a recognized thought leader in economic analysis, workforce development, and public policy. He's provided expert commentary on a range of media outlets, including the New York Times, the LA Times, and Bloomberg, among others. He previously served as the Director of Research at Beacon Economics, and for Gavin Newsom, the governor, on his Economic Development, Housing, Agricultural Policy Committee. He has presented on workforce development policy to the California Assembly of the Arts, Entertainment, Sports, Tourism, and Internet Media. Most recently, he's presented research at LA 2021, the Future of Creative Talent Summit, Amplify Music, and the Sociable Cities Summit. So it's my pleasure to introduce and present Adam Fowler.
Thank you. So yeah, we're excited to release today's report. I've got 20 minutes. That is not a lot for the 175 plus pages you will find in PDF form online. Please read it. The last 2 years' reports, I think, are really good in read together. The last report, celebrating 15 years of this report, is a 15-year time series of how these 5 sectors have evolved, where we've seen growth, where we've seen disruption, and what that means for California and the Los Angeles economy. This work is always a lot, and it's quick. The final data we need is released in November. Christmas is always the Otis Report for the team and I want to thank my colleagues Uday and Alyssa who do that work every year. We're very passionate about this work. The work is a little different. I think all of us as economic consumers turn on NPR or listen to news that has a data release every month about jobs. Those jobs are sourced from data that's very different than what often captures the full suite of how people work in the arts and the creative economy. And in this year's report, you'll see a little bit different of a breakdown on gig employment, self-employment, and then again, those jobs that are W-2 payroll jobs. We think that's important as we see the rise of digital platforms, folks that have things like Twitch streams. That's real economic activity happening, and we want to talk about and think about what that means for the region, especially as we make policy for the next decade for these industries and for the talent that lives here in California. With that, I want to jump in quickly and give you some highlights and takeaways. We've got the highest of the high in terms of the economic rebound, and we've got the lowest of the low, really, under the umbrella of the creative economy. And we want to talk about each of those quickly, give some feedback and thoughts as we tee up the panel that looks toward the future of all 5 of these sectors and how the digital disruption we're seeing, both in gaming but in visual effects and adjacent sectors as well, is really impacting these things. I would start with saying, whenever we do any sort of work, I think 2 questions come up for us. I think we think about what story are you telling and why are you telling the story? What story are you telling with this report has always been a California story. It's been a Los Angeles story. It's about the creativity of the people that live here, the businesses that start here and expand here. It's a California story, this report. The why has changed a lot. Last year when we talked about the early years of the report, that was in a period of global austerity coming out of the Great Recession. That was in a period when the default setting for policymakers was cut, cut, cut. Arts needed to advocate that they were part of the economy and needed the support and investment like other sectors needed. Now, I think we're in a period of disruption, and disruption by its nature is really kind of confusing while we're in the middle of it. And a lot of what we're seeing is a shock from a global pandemic, but we're also seeing the shift in work, how work is done, what work looks like, what creative objects are, both in physical form and digital form. And so as we think about the why, I think for the diverse group of people I see in this room, one of the main takeaways is we've really got to cross-pollinate more. When I end this and turn it over, one of the things I want to flag is that the large economic impact numbers we tout every year catch the eyes of jurisdictions around the world. These numbers are large, they're meaningful. The multipliers to other adjacent industries are large and meaningful. And other jurisdictions around the country say, how can we have some of that? Oftentimes in California, we've had early success when vaudeville and folks moved west from Europe, from New York. We've been, I think, sometimes under the impression that what has been will always be. And during the period of transition we've seen from the global pandemic, the digitization, other jurisdictions around the country and around the globe are coming in hard. That's tax incentives, that's workforce development investment, because these jobs matter and they impact and are impacting adjacent industries. When we talk about gaming, when we talk about extended reality, virtual reality, we're talking about training automobile manufacturers in simulated worlds. Those worlds need artists to design and build. And so I really want us to talk to each other If you're from an arts foundation, talk to someone in tech. That's going to be really important as we move forward and keep the California story strong. Where people live and where they work matters a lot for our fiscal health of our cities and for the quality of life we have in the state. So our 5 main sectors, I won't belabor this: entertainment, fine and performing arts, architecture, creative goods and products, and fashion. All 5 cross-pollinate in Los Angeles in very unique and interesting ways. Entertainment, by far the largest. Fine and performing arts hit hardest during the COVID pandemic, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Architecture seeing a real rebound as we begin to build again in Los Angeles and in California. Infrastructure projects, beginning to see investments around the Olympics. Architecture really coming back strong in Los Angeles. Goods and products is, along with fashion, has been a story of global trade, of manufacturing work going to different jurisdictions over the past 20 years. But as we think about the digital shifts in gaming technology and where that activity is happening, fashion is one of the largest areas in which that early gaming ecosystem has been developing around. Last time I talked to you, I was sitting at my desk praying that my high-speed internet would not give out and I wouldn't be pixelated on you. That was we were looking at the data for 2020. In 2020, thanks to a lot of government intervention, we were able to keep the economy more stable, I think, than initially a lot of economists had thought. There on the left, you can see the California economy in 2020, about $3 trillion. The direct impact of these creative sectors coming in at about $359 billion, capturing a little over 7% of our total jobs with 1.4 million. $128 billion collected in tax revenue at the state, local, and federal level. I think that's important. Anybody that's advocating for the value of these things, this isn't just arts advocates with hands out. This is an economic sector that is paying in, and oftentimes paying in at rates that match or exceed other economic sectors. I think that's important. As we look to 2021, the California economy grew and came in at about $3.4 trillion. The opening up in 2021 expanded that direct impact to about $507 billion, almost, as President mentioned, 15% of the total economy. That's just the direct impact. That's just the work on the ground. You'll see in this year's report, when we talk about the adjacent industry sectors supported by that activity, the number balloons statewide to about $980 billion of activity that is supported. When we estimate the upstream supply chains that support art, tech, entertainment, when we look at the household spending of those workers living in this state and spending and buying and being consumers here, that number gets very large and pushes upwards of 27% of that activity is touched by what we're talking about today. Again, I think sometimes when the pandemic started, there are a lot of graphs that have a downward trajectory. That is true, and we need to talk about that, and we need to approach what that means for all of us in this room. That being said, I do want to anchor this conversation. When we talk about that direct impact, what are we talking about? We're talking about, just from the creative sectors, an economic impact that surpasses the entire economy of Miami, the entire economy of Philadelphia, the entire economy of Seattle in 2021. That's just this activity in this state. That's enormous. And it's important to remember that other jurisdictions are interested in that, especially as digitization continues to grow the economic impact. What happens within our borders, the exciting creative activity, folks are looking at how to poach and move that to their jurisdiction, whether that's another state or another jurisdiction around the globe. I want to talk briefly about this fan of figures you see here about employment trends. In 2021, the total economy, when that calendar year ended, total jobs were down at about 3% in the state. A little higher in Los Angeles County, given the mix of industries we have here, things like tourism, hospitality. That mix of specific industries had us really recover a lot slower than other jurisdictions who had a different balance in their portfolio of industries. In terms of where we ended up in the 5 sectors we focus on, entertainment coming in at a 4.2% growth in those jobs, that capturing things like motion picture, video gaming, gaming activity, sound recording, things we associate with entertainment. Also breaking even, but again, when compared to the total economy at about 2% above the total economy, architecture and related services around the state. The 3 you'll see below those dotted lines, fashion, still down about 13%, creative goods and products down similarly at 13%, fine and performing arts statewide down about 19% in terms of employment. You'll remember if you read last year's report when we looked at the 15-year history, both entertainment and performing arts were 2 that had rapid growth throughout the past 15 years. Entertainment has bounced back. It is recovered. It is back on a trajectory. Fine and performing arts, live theater is still really deep in a hole, and we need to account for that. The overall creative economy often washes that out in terms of how we report on it. I want to talk quickly, architectural and related services here in California versus in Los Angeles. Again, that roughly 0% over the 2018 through 2020 period statewide. That was good. That was a win under the circumstances. In Los Angeles, we've seen an 8% increase over that period of time. That's really new. Los Angeles has seen architectural activity, both architects move into other adjacent industries, but we've also seen the activity slow down as challenges around zoning, building, et cetera, just slow the amount of work that can come and be on an architect's desk. As we begin to build infrastructure projects, we think about transit-oriented housing and other policies that fast-track some of that. We're seeing architecture come back, and that's exciting, especially in the Los Angeles region. Fine and performing arts, both down at the state level and at the county level. About 15.5% down in terms of employment count over that period of time. You can see there in that space between 2019 and 2020, that's the aggressive drop right from the early closing of the sector. That second chunk, I think, is important. That second chunk of the chart from 2020 to 2021. That period of time when vaccines begin to roll out, we still see a flat line in both at the statewide level and in the Los Angeles level for fine and performing arts. That's important. Los Angeles County doing a little bit better. That statewide number driven by some really hard hit areas throughout. Some of our smaller regions in the state have not held on as well as LA County has. Important to take away, I think, from this year's report. Entertainment, again, if we think about outperforming not just the creative economy, but the economy overall, a shift to digital really put the wind in the sails of this sector. In Los Angeles County, we saw an aggressive drop in motion picture and sound during that period of time when labor unions and folks were coming together to figure out how production would work in a world of health restrictions. That had an aggressive bounce back. We've also seen a lot of other activity in the digital media space really outperform and is on a growth trajectory for the state as well. That in video games, that in all sorts of digital media. And in Los Angeles County, those two, both digital media and motion picture, are of equal weight. I want just to summarize really quick before we look forward. Looking back, we've got some work to do in our performing arts, in our fine arts sectors. We've got some work to do, and I think we've got to think about how we do policy differently. Physical goods, business models that required in-person activity, those were really vulnerable. We need to think about how folks in tech, how folks in adjacent industry sectors can lean in and maybe help these small performing and fine arts folks think about digital goods and products. One of the beauties about all of these sectors is that they are export goods, and especially when they have a digital footprint. That, we don't just need people here in our neighborhood to consume them. We've got a whole global market that consume them and bring that money back here to our communities. So I think as we begin to think about these numbers, and especially those performing arts organizations and firms, that we think about how we can bring folks together. Is there someone at the opera that is talking to someone in a digital tech space? Those kinds of conversations are going to be really important as we move forward. So summarizing, where with both last year's report and this year's, last year showing an almost 2-decade trend line of like what has the world been, this year's report really leaning in through the years of the pandemic. Digitization, where we saw an ability to pivot and recreate our world digitally in whatever form, those sectors were very strong, and the rebound continues. Business models, those in-person business models have been hit very hard. The adjacencies of performing arts are so very important, not just to Los Angeles County, but in communities across the region. We see that impact when we look at the number of nightlife establishments in our major urban areas. They've been decimated. The adjacent hospitality, other industries in those regions where performing arts is still struggling to get its footing have been hit really hard, and that is really one of, I think, the key takeaways that we don't have a clear answer for what that looks like in another 5 years. I want to shift quickly before I introduce the panel to talk about gaming. I think 5-10 years ago when I was the weird millennial economist talking about gaming, people were a little skeptical. I understand. When I was in high school, I got seasick trying to play video games with other people. I could never do it. So I wasn't myself on board. What I want to talk about is not the buzzwords of the moment, but really the things that are happening. I think we've all seen in our newsfeed enough about the metaverse. This isn't about the metaverse. This is about a whole economy that's opening up across a lot of different spaces. And gaming isn't new. A lot of what is labeled as gaming, if we go down the list of those titles and those game ecosystems that have the largest revenue, have the most users, have the most subscribers, they're not games in the way you think of as a game. They're communities. They're building things. When we look at the numbers of like an Animal Crossing, you're basically gardening, from what I understand. There isn't a game in the way we think about game. And I think that's important, right? Because all of us, whatever industry you were in, we were using tools like Zoom. We were using tools to recreate a digital version of our life. And I think a lot of those communities, while they get labeled under games, are exactly the technology that we're seeing move forward. Export trend, we have seen video game and video game content in this country rocket. The last 5 years, we've had a 50% growth in that export activity for video games. They are continuing to bring money into our country and especially into our state in terms of that global consumer base. We've seen a little bit of a flat line in audiovisual services, given just the ability to show movies and things like that in theaters, in public spaces. But video games in terms of an export industry has really been through the roof. As I tee up the panel, I do want to talk just for a moment about extended reality and what we're talking about when we say gaming. We do need better language. I think myself, gaming is so limiting really in terms of thinking about the opportunity both for economic mobility with our talent, but really supporting entrepreneurs and folks like that over the next 10 years. We're really thinking about a scale of digital activity that's going from the physical world, the you and I here, to a highly immersive virtual world. And along that way, we've got things that are augmented. So, when we play Pokemon Go, when you put the Snapchat filter over your face, when you do things that are laying a digital component over the real world. Mixed reality, when IKEA helps you place furniture in an empty room, when you're able to try on glasses. In motion picture and sound, when virtual production allows for robust LED volumes to simulate an environment while real actors act in front of it. That's mixed reality. Virtual reality we're seeing in spaces like hospitality, where Marriott allows you to be immersed in their spaces when you're booking events, things like that. When Volkswagen trains some of their new manufacturers in a virtual environment. That's a self-contained environment. All of this are going to open up opportunities not just for the traditional arts and creative sectors, but for sectors all throughout the economy. Folks are looking for a whole set of creative occupations to help support, digitize their business model. And I want to end with, as we shift and I introduce the panel, to global competition. For a long time, California, we've looked inward. For a lot of reasons. Economic data doesn't talk well with other economic data globally. There's a whole host of things that make us talk to ourselves. I think in the sectors we're talking about today, gaming, motion picture, visual effects, in terms of where we're seeing growth, what we need to understand is the competition has become fierce and continues to become more fierce. And we see a lot of activity. In the early 1990s, Canada rolled out a series of tax credits that really hollowed out a lot of our visual effects ecosystem. That includes things like animation, things that now are popping up in a gaming ecosystem. The same set of skills, the same set of ecosystem of people and firms, we're now seeing expanded out and have broader opportunities than that post-production silo we had them in or thought about them in the 1990s. We lost 50% in the report you'll see going back to 1990, down about 50% of that post-production activity compared to the 90s. And that was just Canada. Now we see regions rolling out digital media, gaming, other sets of policy incentives, both on the tax side to support business and on the talent development side, investment in the next generation of talent. All of this matters, and we've seen the impact it has had. It is not anymore just about the California Film Tax Credit. There was a lot, we wrote till our hearts, content in the 90s when we saw and talked about the export, the runaway production. We managed to put a tourniquet on that with the existing form. But again, that doesn't include activity like animation. That doesn't include forms that aren't about days of principal photography. It's an old model, it's an old policy model, and lots of places, both domestically and across the globe, are really leaning in to poach that activity from us. So as we look to the future, the talent opportunities are strong. We just have a vested interest as Californians to make sure that activity stays here and offers middle-class wage opportunities. So with that, I will introduce the moderator, Stan Sheminsky, who's going to lead today's panel on a lot of these questions, gaming and the digital shift in art and design. Stan is a lecturer at Otis College and the founder of Stanley Vision, a consulting, recruiting, and resource management firm for VFX, gaming, AR, VR, and digital media production. Over the course of his 30-plus years, Stan has had a major impact across the creative sector. So we're grateful for his experience and insight in moderating today's panel. And with that, Stan, I invite you and the panel to take the stage. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. I'll be the moderator, which means I'm not going to talk, which is a difficult thing for me to do, but I think I'll be able to manage it. So, okay, let's start with introductions. I'll start with Audria, to my left here.
Hi. Hi, my name is Audria Tops-Harjo, and I am the founder of Inclusion Effects. I've been in the industry for about 30-odd years. Same as Stan. I used to work for Stan, actually, Sony Pictures. I worked at Sony Pictures, Cinesite, Rhythm & Hughes, Weta Digital at the time, it's now Weta Effects. I worked for Lightstorm Entertainment. I was a COO of a small game studio in New Zealand, and now I'm a movie producer. So we come full circle. So that's where I am. Thanks.
My name is Pelle Chanel, that's his Swedish name. And I am a proud member of the Board of Governors at Otis. And my day job is the Chief Creative Officer of Activision Blizzard. So I'm in the game world.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia. Really pleasure to be here, meeting everyone here. Currently, I'm leading growth at TikTok. I've been in the company since 2018. I'm really excited to see the growth, and thank you, everyone. If any users are here using the platform. Prior to TikTok, I was in Seattle leading product marketing for Echo Alexa and some of the e-commerce business. Really pleasure to be here. Excited for the conversation today.
Hey, everybody. My name is Rochelle Lewis. I am the president and founder of RLT. We are a very highly specialized talent acquisition company. We work in animation, visual effects, and virtual production, as well as tech, mostly for motion picture, streaming TV, and we also do a lot of experiential and immersive work with clients as well. I'm really looking forward to this very cool panel discussion.
Hello. Hi, my name is Ron Bernard. I'm the chair of animation at Otis College. Previous to that, I worked at Lightstorm, Avatar. Previous to that, I worked in China for 13 years, base effects. Previous to that, I worked in Singapore. I also was a professor at SCAD. I had a long career, so I'm happy to be here.
Okay, panel, thanks for the introductions. Let me just read a little context and then we'll jump into the questions. So as the year's report shows, technology and gaming drive change and innovation not only across creative industries, but throughout the entire economy. The economic value of the creative sectors extends far beyond artistic and cultural goods or the employment of creative people. Change in the creative sectors often introduces both structural and operational shifts throughout the economy. In this sense, gaming technology, in quotes, is foundational to the development of nearly all sectors, not just the creative ones. So again, today's topic is gaming and the digital shift in art and design. And we'll kick off with this first question. As the Otis report illustrates, gaming and XR technology are intersecting with many sectors, from architecture and urban design to fashion and creative goods. Are there examples or possibilities that are particularly exciting to you? And we'll start off with Pella. Do you want to take this question?
Yeah, great. One thing we did at Otis this year, which I'm very proud of, was that we got the Otis fashion students to work with a game, our game Call of Duty, and to interpret that as for a virtual runway. And thinking about it, I mean, obviously there's a juxtaposition between that game and fashion and a lot of things that makes it even more interesting creatively. But the reason why was to make sure that our students are exposed to what could be the growing fashion world of skins and these types of things where like we heard from the report, that there is a, traditionally you would think of going to a fashion house and make physical goods, but to think of it as virtual, which is really exploding, is something that, so to see the crossover, the blurring of the lines as an opportunity to expose young, diverse talent to new opportunity.
Very cool. Thank you. Julie, how about you? Would you like to jump in?
Yeah, happy to join you more. So we have not had a chance to work with students here yet, but certainly we're excited for any future opportunities. I think with companies like TikTok and other social platforms, we are certainly seeing more and more young professionals want to get into the space, get into tech, come from a more traditional creative background, and work on things like AR effects that I know we talked a little bit about in the presentation earlier, how that's impacting content consumption and content creation as well. So I would say for creative talents, we're certainly very excited for what that will bring to technology and the new media space, and really allowing more and more people to become the content creators. And then for us, we're enabling tools, technologies to help them to build a platform like that. And certainly really excited to see more and more students want to get into this profession.
Excellent. Thanks, Julia. Is there anybody else who wants to jump in on this question? Going once, going twice?
I'll just say something.
Okay, go ahead.
Pele mentioned the collaboration that we have with Blizzard Activision King. It's a really good opportunity. We're pairing up our students, our fashion students, with our digital media students, and working together and bringing virtual reality, using Unreal, using Marvelous is a great thing. And I think more of that is needed to kind of blend two different disciplines together.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, Ron. Number two, there seem to be comparable and transferable skill sets between gaming, virtual world building, content-driven social media, and other sectors, including TV, film, and animation. Are you seeing people move fluidly between those worlds? Why or why not? And Audrey, why don't you start with that one?
Yeah, it's a great question. So both of those disciplines need use of your left and right brain. right, really highly technical and highly creative, which also has a really unique perspective when you're dealing with people. And all of those jobs need those type skills. It's basically for artists. It's really how you want to be exposed and where you want to work. So for film, it's very lineal driven. It's you have the script, you have the movie, you have the editorial, and it's very, very linear. And even though they're making movie magic, it's still very calming because you have Act One, Act Two, Act Three. When you have a game, you're making games. You have a sandbox. You can do anything. And some people don't necessarily love the chaos, and so it takes a little bit of a leap. I've seen senior people really struggle with that shift over between, high-end visual effects and working in games, but also see the young kids coming in working in games really excel. And so it's possible. Most of the people who I've worked with in visual effects are now working in games. Most of them are Activision right now. So it's definitely possible. For me, I've bounced back on the production side on all of the genres. So it's all about managing and herding cats for me. So I could do that across any platform. Yeah.
Very, very good. Yes, cat herding is definitely a way to describe it. Rochelle, how about you?
Yeah, so talking about crossover, it used to be not too long ago that if you were going to put a career forward in visual effects, I mean, that was a very different group of people than would go and work in animation for feature. And completely different from people in gaming. And now we're seeing a complete cross-pollination of all of these types of creatives coming together, very much driven, of course, from the platform Unreal, which we now see used in feature animation, completely unheard of, not too long ago. Nobody would have ever even considered that. And I think that's one of the main reasons that people are able now to maybe work at a game company and then say, this has been really great and fun. I would love to do a motion picture. I'd love to do something in live action. How do my skills move into that arena? And now they do. It is kind of a struggle. Ordrea, of what I speak, for some people to make that leap. But many, many are now. And I think that if we start training people earlier and showing them you're not making this decision for the rest of your life. This isn't chiseled in stone that you're going to be working in games or in TV production or in feature film. You can move between different sectors now. You couldn't do that.
Well done, Michelle.
Yeah.
The Otis College Report recommends an expanded focus on apprenticeship opportunities that foster a more thoughtful approach to nurturing talent while easing the burden on participating firms. How do you see apprenticeships being embraced as a talent pipeline for industry seeking similar skills, including gaming, VFX, social media? Pelle?
I think apprenticeships are wonderful. I don't think it should be an excuse to not hire, but I think it's a great way to hire. And I think that for students, it's kind of similar to if you read a book about riding a bike or you're riding a bike. That to get to someone's to the workplace and understand the dynamics and build relationships you can possibly change the trajectory of that student's career. But I think also we could maybe scale it as an idea to have teachers also do apprenticeships that way you could get even more students impacted by understanding the different workplaces, how they're different, what they're looking for, and what it's like to work there.
Okay, yeah, that's very true. We did something similar at ImageWorks. But Audrey, why don't you pop in?
For me, my work with inclusion effects is definitely bringing on historically underrepresented people into the market. And if we're going to grow, we need to expand that demographic. And so apprentice programs, I think the Brick Foundation just started something in December with DreamWorks and GRX Immersive, and building a pipeline with the U.S. With the California public school system. And it's a 12-month program, and they have a pipeline where they bring in professionals and build a curriculum, so whereby that they will be successful when they get into the job market. I think if you have multiple programs like that, specifically target that area, I think it only grow, because right now it's at the gaming was at 3% diverse. The rest is very homogeneous, and I think it can only get better if we open up that field to more help. I think that'll be great.
Completely
Stan,
agree.
can I
Thank
say
you.
something into this too? Because we've always had internships, right? And internships are like the golden ticket to the chocolate factory. Because I think so many creatives feel really kind of terrified about entering the castle. You know, it's scary when we look back at our respective careers. I'm sure we've all been in that position where it's like, oh my God, you know, how do I get into DreamWorks, you know? And I think that when you're talking about apprenticeships, I think that that's more than an internship. I think that these studios and tech companies and game companies, whoever, need to really partner with these schools and grow the talent that they know they can employ. You know, back in the day when I was running recruitment for Digital Domain, we didn't have enough Houdini artists. Everybody needed Houdini. Well, they weren't being grown because the software was so incredibly expensive that schools couldn't afford to purchase seats and train people. So we went up to Vancouver Film School because they were the first, they were always there, like, you know, what can we do? What can we do? And we worked with them and Side Effects and got a bunch of Houdini seats in there and grew this is where we were incubating these Houdini artists. And of course, then Side Effects took that to other schools and said, God, this is a great idea. We need to do more things like that with not just, okay, here's the schools, here's the industry, where's the bridge?
Right.
We need to build really, really seriously long bridges that reach into these students well before they're in their senior year.
Completely agreed. My work at Otis is mostly working with graduating seniors. And this semester, I'm teaching a sophomore class. And because of my background in recruiting, everything is just focused on how do you get a job. So I'm giving I gave a lecture on Wednesday on SEO, search engine optimized language, ATS systems, Boolean strings, keywords, and how this all affects your ability to market yourself. But Julia, how about you?
Yeah, I would say even though I had a lot of internships back in the days, and I would say the reason why I'm still so involved in campus is because I really value those experiences, what we call internship but not apprenticeship. How valuable those experiences are in exposing myself to the real world and what it's like. And honestly, the transition was just so much more smoother. So I fully support of that and really encourage more professionals like us to get more involved and see how we can support different colleges. Even though I went to school in the East Coast, but now I am actually pretty active in the LA campus across different schools, just so then I think there's other ways for me to really contribute here.
Thanks, Julia. So how can California's educational system and creative sectors develop these pathways to provide greater access to careers in these sectors we're discussing for underrepresented talent? I know, Audrey, you touched on this previously. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's so important to show underrepresented students that there is a job and a chance, because I think they don't see a lot of people in the business that look like them. And I can tell you firsthand that it's really daunting to be in a situation where the only is one. What's that support? Who is there to guide you? So I think what my work with Inclusion Effects is building the bridge of all those kind of unicorns out there and showing that it's possible. And even it's not necessarily just students, but also professional, because we're so desperate. And I would always joke, and when, before Ron got to Lightstorm, it was me in security. Because I was just really the only one there. And so I think it's so important to continue that work and making sure that everybody has a voice and continue on to grow the business. Say that again.
I love that story when you told it the other day. Yeah. Ron, how about you?
I totally agree. Working together, we always was the first person of color overseas, and we was representative of, everyone overseas. And it was really, really important that other students, other people see that you can make it. And that's why I love the work you're doing with Inclusion Effects. And there's other programs working with Otis, SOLA and other things that really kind of bring awareness that, we are in here. We can do this, and you can do this as well.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Let me move on to this next question. Content is a shared need across many digital sectors, gaming, film, tech, social media, but unemployment opportunities continue to shift out of the state. For example, post-production employment has declined by an estimated 50% in California over the past 3 decades. and this is despite a record amount of content production and spend. How can California support the innovation, growth, and global competitiveness of this sector? Rochelle, what's your thoughts on this?
All right. I have been waiting a long time to talk about this. So,
I'm going to time you.
oh no, I'm sorry. So back in the day, the visual effects industry, we really took a hit as a community because when the tax credits opened up in Canada, we were forced to leave our communities, move our children, move our families, many times to Canada, to Vancouver, to Montreal. That still exists, of course. I do see more and more coming back to LA, but I'm going to say these two words: virtual production. The state of California, if they want to bring billions of dollars back to the state, they need to give tax incentives to companies who are building virtual stages here in a meaningful way. So not just putting up, all of this money to the big giant studios. They already have money, but give them a tax incentive to keep it here instead of putting it up north. They need to keep it in California. Virtual production is used now in everything. Everything you see, a commercial on television, of course, all of the TV shows that you watch on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, all that they're utilizing virtual production. Of course, it's used in feature film. We worked on Avatar, Audrey, I know you did as well. That to me is because to try to bring those facilities back in visual effects to California, that's a big move for these companies. They've invested a lot in putting a house up there, if you will. Virtual production, that's what we need to focus on right now, because if we can keep that, it hasn't moved out of California yet. Can we keep it in California, please? But we have to give the companies tax incentives that are meaningful so they will keep it here in California and we don't all have to move to Montreal. Thank you very much.
Yes, agreed. AI and AR are top of mind for many industries right now, including gaming and content-driven social media. These were among the first sectors to embrace them. What impact do you foresee AI and AR having across digital creative sectors as they become increasingly advanced and accessible? Good question. Who'd like to start this off?
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Ron?
It's funny because we were just talking about this before. AI is going to be a huge paradigm shift. We're seeing it here. Major companies are already hiring prompt artists, so to speak. And we have to be ahead of this. We have to incorporate that stuff into our curriculum and teach that, because I think this is going to drive forward the industry in terms of AI and content generation, iterations, and things like that.
Well, I think it's a great. I don't think AI will replace the artist, but it adds another color to the palette. It's a tool that should be used, and I used it this morning on this question. So, do you want to hear it? Do you want to hear what?
Yeah.
So this exact question is
Yeah.
what GPT answer is. As AI and AR technology become more advanced and accessible, they're likely to have a significant impact on the digital creative sectors. In terms of AI, it has the potential to automate many creative tasks, but also potentially change the nature of creative work and the skills required for creative jobs. We knew all this in a way, but and then I think that overall, the increasing accessibility and advancement of AI and AR technology is likely to bring both opportunities and challenges to the digital creative sectors. And I think it's what's important here is that we have emerging talent and emerging technology. And it's about connecting the two, because that will be an advantage for them. For others who've been in the industry for a long time, they have to relearn in a way these new tools. And for the young talent, it's native, or it's right there, it's right here now. So I think and institutions and companies need to not be the silos or try to open up for these crossovers and these kind of learnings. I think is the opportunity. It seems very clear.
Very cool. And AI is very verbose. Julia.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would say for especially the educators here, because I remember just talking about AI with some of the creatives, I think the first thing usually comes of it is like, would that replace my job, right? Which I think this will not only make their job more powerful, more scalable, but made them become, I would say, some of the driving force for many companies in a way, right? Creative team department, sometimes people see it as more like a supporting department, but now I'm seeing that as more and more the driving force for a company. So that's actually more encouraging to encourage more folks to study creatives and study technology, how to use tech to build your creatives. And also in a way that AI also gives you more creativity, because sometimes if you have the set of same style over time, you end up making the same type of content or arts over years and years. But with AI, it probably can spark you something new. And with that, I would say you can become more creative, right, and more valuable asset for the company. So I think those are some of the things that we can use to, educate and tell more young people that, hey, this is not something that will create your job. You should continue to study this profession, and this is something that will make yourself a lot more valuable in the long term.
This is actually kind of related to the next question, which is, do you see developing in other, in technology or skills, what do you see developing in other industries that are impacting growth strategies at TikTok?
Great question. I would say not just for TikTok, right? Just for this social platform, what media companies in general. As I'm hiring young talents, I see beyond their professional skill, looking at their portfolios. I look at also their business acumen. Like, for example, communication skills, being able to, organize things, project management, know how to prioritize projects. I think those are the things that increasingly important will actually help you stand out amongst all the creatives. That's one. And I'm also coming from a consulting background. That's why I feel this business acumen is so important for any industry. Second, I would say more the analytical skills. A lot of creatives that I hire, at the end of the project, I would ask them, comparing different creatives through experiments, which one performed better. How do you know it's performing better? Oh, you have to look at the data. It's not just about, oh, I feel this looks better than the other. But sometimes if you build a marketing campaign, you probably won't know until the actual performance result, one converts better than the other. So I think learning more about some of the data analytical tools and skills will actually help you get a long way as creatives.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So the Otis College recommends the creation of a digital R&D fund for the arts to support collaborative projects that employ emerging digital technologies. What impact do you think that kind of infrastructure would have on creative industries as a whole? Audrey, do you want to start there?
That's a good question. I think, I remember when Unreal was started. I was in Medal of Honor instead of Call of Duty. You guys won, but back in the day, so it made everyone's life so much easier when it was all kind of converged onto that one engine, and seeing it over the next 20 odd years turn into this really a standardized way of working where everybody's kind of building on it, which is artists, filmmakers, and so I think it can only improve the industry if we're able to kind of master it, starting from a very young age and having them, the sky's the limit to that. So, and it's all accessible, right? Unreal is free. You can kind of dig through all the madness that's in there.
Yes.
But no, I have really high hopes for the industry if we all kind of standardize on those things. Like, remember, it was like they had compositing systems and Nuke, right. And they were Stan, we started when there was no standardized of anything. We were just making it up on the fly.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. The development of naming conventions was a particular, and color timing like issues.
Yeah, come on.
Oh yeah. Anyways.
But
sorry, I'm telling more
when
stories.
You're talking about R&D, so it's more, it's yes, they need to learn Unreal, of course, And by the way, that technology will be outdated in 5 years as well. It's already, and working in like immersive, experiential, virtual production, all of these things are converging. So when we talk about an R&D, it's a bigger discussion than just a platform, and it really requires a brain trust of individuals from all different sectors of entertainment talking to each other about, well, what is it that we're going to need? Like, what do we need right now? But what are we thinking we're going to need in 3 years? because 3 years goes by really quick with technology changes.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a
sorry.
huge thing to have an R&D fund. We need it. We've needed it for years.
Yeah. Pelle, what's your thoughts on this?
I think anyone who is in anything around creativity that hears anything about funding is going to be sounds great. But I think it's important to this point is that what is it now that we need? Now, I want to echo again that we have emerging talent and emerging technologies, and make sure that the fund goes to that. I think when there are, I think make it accessible to the right people, and make sure that it is R&D in the sense that what is far ahead. How can that not be sponsoring things that are happening today, but are showing us the way for the future with the right people doing it?
Yeah, exactly. Ron, do you have anything?
I disagree. As an educator, we always think about how we're training kids for 4 years, 5 years out, because technology is always changing. And I think the R&D fund is something we really need to kind of integrate all these things together, because that's where the industry is leading to. We're talking about virtual production, we're talking about AI, we're talking about AR. All that stuff is converging, and we need to be prepared for that. And so I think R&D fund will be really great, because we can start to blend these things together and learn and how we can teach that to other students.
Thank you to the panelists. I think the specific topic that they came to talk about is this digital shift, which is obviously dramatic in the creative economy. The report on the creative economy outlines that. At Otis College, we're very focused on that. We teach I'll say traditional, hands-on, physical art and design curriculum, but we're expanding it in dramatic digital ways on a daily basis. I think Pelle talked about our first digital fashion design class we did with Activision Blizzard, where the students didn't need to cut fabric and sew and do all the hands-on piece of assembling fabric. But that's going on in every subject we teach, and obviously in the report that Adam compiled, you'll see it's going on in all elements of the creative economy. In addition to thanking the panelists, I want to thank our trustee, Leo Lawson, who is my boss since I report to a board of trustees, and the one who showed up today. So Leo, thank you for being here. I want to ask all the Otis staff and faculty that is here to stand up and remain standing. So as I not only do I personally thank you for what you do for our students, but I just want to tell everyone, if you're intrigued by what you heard about the report, what you heard about Netflix, our partnership with Activision Blizzard, what we do with SNAP, Mattel, the Charles White Scholarship Program, lots of initiatives that are going on to engage our students to have successful careers in the creative economy, then these are the people you should talk to as you munch in the courtyard. But in general, thank you for being here. I appreciate your interest in the creative economy. I appreciate your interest in Otis. You are all welcome. If you've never been there, or if you want to come back, you're welcome the weekend of May 11th through 13th. We have our annual exhibition and a sort of festival called O-Launch, where all our students and faculty display all their work, and it's very exciting. So we hope to see you all then. Thank you for coming.